Tack Sanna och tack för inbjudan till det här konferenset. Vi har haft väldigt intressanta frågor idag som diskuterad och vi ska ta dem upp i paneldiskussionen om open access som Clement Petersen talade om och den här upphovsrättslagen 40b som Niklas talade om. Senare ska min kollega Viveka Still tala och hon hade faktiskt samma jobb före som jag har nu och hon poängterade några saker som jag vill ta upp. Så jag arbetar för Aalto universitet som är universitet som började sin verksamhet 2010. Och det är den gamla tekniska högskolan, det finskspråkiga handelshögskolan och konstfackskolan från Helsingfors gick tillsammans till Aalto universitet 2010. Och jag arbetar också för konstuniversitetet i Helsingfors som är Sibeliusakademien, teaterhögskolan och konstfackskolan tillsammans. Så när Viveka hade mitt jobb så var det 5 universitet som vi arbetade i 6 universitet och nu är det bara 2 så vi har den här trenden att vi vill ha större universitet. Och vårt universitet försöker vara väldigt internationellt och mestadels forskning och föreläsningar och undervisning händer på engelska och när jag preparerade min material så arbetade med engelska språket, men nu när jag har varit en dag bland nordiska kollegor och vänner så ångrar jag det, men jag ska nu ha min föreläsning på engelska som jag preparerade det. Men jag vill berätta lite om den här som Viveka tog upp, teaterhögskolan är, så vet i Finland den enda högskolan som har en i arbetsavtal en permanent utnyttjanderättighet för undervisning och forskning och för många andra ändamål. Och om någon vill ha den avtal så den finns också på svenska. So I will start my actual presentation now in English. So I work for the research support services, so I'm actually in the university administration, but I also teach about 20-30 lections every year. And we've had a lot of discussions about having a general agreement about copyright at the university. We have certain projects where we've had agreements, but we don't have yet a general agreement like that one discussed earlier in Oslo. But we have very similar starting points in these discussions. One that has come up that there are very different groups that are involved. And for student-created material, we have actually an agreement. In the Art University and in Aalto University, in the design school, when the students start at Art University or design school, they sign a general agreement about copyright. So we have that actually covered in some of the schools. And then points that have come up is that you would have regular teaching staff and then just visiting lecturers. And a special point is, like we are doing here, when there are videos of lectures, we have also special agreements that the visiting lecturer who is doing the video will sign, like we are doing today. And what has come up with university staff is that there are different kinds of employment relationships. And the feeling is that if you are just visiting for a day or for 1 hour, you shouldn't have to transfer as much copyright than if you are in a permanent employment relationship. And this is the same point that Professor Jan Rosén took up, the amount of investment done by the university. So there is teaching staff that has been paid for maybe 10 years of doing especially teaching materials that are used and reused over and over again at the university. And then there is the lecturer that only comes for 1 hour, and the university pays a very small amount to that visiting lecturer. So the difference in investment should be reflected in the scope of rights transferred to university. And then we have in the research field, when there are externally funded projects, we have an agreement, which is an appendix to the work agreement that everybody signs, and that appendix transfers ownership of copyright to university for any materials created by externally funded projects or created in externally funded projects. But teaching materials are typically not done in an externally funded projects. And I have been lecturing on copyright for 20 years, and I usually always start my lectures with that there are 3 important things when you are talking about copyright, and it's agreements, agreements, agreements. And that is the solution that seems right also about the university teaching materials. As was brought forward by Niklas Brun, the academic freedom means that it is a very small amount of copyright, if any, transferred to university by law. So we need agreements with the staff. And of course in the Nordic society, where we have the good workers' organizations, this is a big process that involves a lot of negotiations. But we would go from the. We have discussed that we would have a different width of rights, just as in Norway. Ole Anders Rönnstad brought up that there would be. He talked about bruk över flera semester. That would be recurring courses, so courses that are done over and over again during many years of university. And there we would need the right to also change the materials. And then for a course that the teacher only does maybe one time, that we wouldn't need such extensive rights. And then a new big trend is the open courseware. And to the open courseware, there is already a specific open courseware consent form formulated by the MIT University in the United States, and that's available online. And when we are going to do open courseware courses, we are going to use that MIT consent form already available. And that will be voluntary. So no teacher at the university would be forced to have his course as an open courseware. So open courseware is only for those teachers who wish to do this kind of coursework. And also it's very important that the rights transferred to university are non-exclusive because it is the nature of university work that we visit other universities, like I'm visiting Uppsala University today, and it's very important that the teachers have rights, that it is only non-exclusive rights that the university takes. Sorry, I forgot to change that. So do it here. So the university would have non-exclusive rights. And then there's the question of third-party works. We have a service, as part of the advisory service that I run, we have a Copyright Aalto fee website, and we have very precise rules about what to do with third-party works, and those are also printed in the material that you were given today, and they are also online on the website if you want to check those. For third-party works, we have now, from 2012, a license bought by the Ministry of Education, a collective license that is for universities, and we can also do digital copies of works for teaching purposes. And this service this agreement is provided by Kopiosto and the Ministry of Education. And then for those materials that are used for recording courses, the university would need extensive rights, also right to modify the teaching material and the right to redistribute it. And then, of course, the question of what is in open networks and what is in intranet is very important, and also from the viewpoint of third-party materials. And this question of non-commercial collaboration and commercial or non-commercial teaching, our university also has a unit of commercial courses that are sold to businesses and are quite expensive. And would we need materials also for that? And as I said, for the OpenCourseware courses, there is already a well-defined license online. So I think we are a bit early, but do you have any questions about the agreement situation? There are no general agreements. The only university that has an agreement is the Teatterhögskolan, and other universities are just talking about this. I asked all the universities, because we have an email list of all university intellectual property lawyers, not a very big group of people in Finland, and none of the universities have a general agreement except for the Teatterhögskolan yet, but it is a thing that many university administration people at least feel that we should have, and also those who are developing teaching at Aalto University feel that we should have this agreement, because we've had cases where a teacher has left and has taken every single bit of information about the teaching he has been doing maybe for 10 years, and everything has to be started from scratch, and it's a very difficult situation for university, and we want to avoid that kind of situations in the future. And also in some courses the teachers are unsure always of how can they use the material that has been distributed in that unit of university, and the other teachers want to have security that if they are using material generated by previous teachers, that they are doing something that they have the right to do. So it's not only administration, but also the teachers want to have clear rules of what is allowed and how can you use the material of colleagues if needed be, because there are also units at the university where it has been a custom to use the materials left by former colleagues, but what this custom is really based on legally is not on a very, very safe ground. So a lot of groups at the university would like to have these matters more defined by clear agreement, so everybody knows what is the permitted thing to do. And I personally feel that legislation is probably not the right answer for this particular question. There are other questions about research that could be dealt with legal reforms, but the question of how university is to use the material of its own employees, I think that's best agreed on in clear agreements, and that way we can have a very detailed agreement, and that kind of detail that you couldn't get with some legal reform. And as was discussed, these legal reforms in Finland and Sweden have been very difficult politically to perform, so I don't see also that this could be fixed by politicians in the near future. And we do need this because we need the high level of education that we want to give to our students. And as Niklas pointed out, one thing that is needed for this high level of activity at the university is a high level of the intellectual property questions, how they are dealt with.